Hello, I'm delighted to be joined today by Peter Sowrey, currently Group CPO of Centrica. Amongst Peter's many achievements in his impressive career are the fact that over the 4 years he's had at Centrica, he's managed to drive savings and cost avoidance of approximately £100 million a year in each of those 4 years. Peter, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew. Pleasure to be with you. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So, Peter, we met last month at DPW in Amsterdam, and we had a very enjoyable conversation about the role of tech in procurement. And I was particularly interested in your sort of CPO perspective. So we thought it'd be a good idea to share some of that discussion with a wider audience. So I'd like to start by asking you a question, which is, what problems can technology solve for procurement?
It's a good question, Andrew, because I think a number of problems need solving. I think one of the things we've been facing in Centrica is sort of we have our Reba stack at the moment, which sort of drives our procurement platform. And you could argue, oh, let's rip it out and start again with something new and some new glamorous tool. But I think what we're finding now is, those kind of platforms are very well established. What we're looking, predominantly is, around platforms around process augmentation. Some really good platforms in the AI stack now are helping, deliver that sort of end user journey, which is really important for us in Centrica to really sort of support our business, to support our all of our engineers and all of our people in our offices to understand, what they need to buy and how the best way to buy it is. I think a lot of the tools, that are coming out that drive sort of process orchestration and drive you down a process are really becoming useful now. A lot of those have been driven by AI now, so getting very interesting for me.
Yeah, and of course there were, I think, 121 vendors present at DPW in Amsterdam, and almost all of them had something to say about AI and its capability. They all seem so excited. They've all got great marketing. They've all got a great story to tell. Why aren't procurement professionals using these solutions in greater numbers yet?
I think, to be honest, Andrew, it's a hard sell. In any large organisation, it's not just the procurement community that need to be convinced. It's the IT folks, the financial folks. So it needs much more of a holistic approach when you're selling into a complex, organisation. And then I think procurement are kind of stuck on the old traditional platforms and haven't really understood where AI can help them and support them. I think in the last 4 years in my time at Centrica, really we've been experimenting with different platforms and different ways of working, looking to process drive, a lot of our processes within procurement, if that makes sense, and looking at which platforms can really help do that. I mean, the platforms are there now to drive it, and there's some beautiful, as we saw out in Amsterdam last month, some beautiful platforms that will help drive that story. I mean, the real challenge now is to get that story into the heads of the CPOs.
Indeed, I think that's the big challenge in getting that time, that attention, because I think a lot of them have got, as I say, that great marketing. But the question I often ask myself is, what more could these vendors do to actually have a greater impact with CPOs in terms of perhaps talking more about the problems they solve rather than talking about all the clever technical things they do. Do you get me? I think, can they solve real world problems? Do you think that's something they could do more of?
Quite interesting being a CPO, because in any large organization, you're kind of buried in the DNA of that company, and you don't really, you kind of live in that echo chamber of your own organization. So a lot of these tools, are getting missed over, and you're not getting the right messages into the right people at the right time. So I think that's kind of, that ability to show, to tell, to demonstrate, and to be able to show how these technologies can really transform, while at the same time, not eliminating your job. I think that where's a lot of fear comes from along those dimensions as well. Will AI, destroy the work that I do? And we've seen it through some of our experiments where, spend analytics, takes away the work of 16 people. Using AI now, we get really detailed, granular understanding of what we're buying, from the point of view of, pipes and fittings and, how we buy from different suppliers and stuff. It would take months to analyze in spreadsheets, and we're still getting that data come out in real time now. And, that's kind of the challenge that people need to understand and experiment a little bit to understand what's coming down the pipe and how to use it. And I think that's where, that all of these companies need to start helping that journey. It's not just a question, I've got this wonderful product to sell. It's around explaining how to use it. And that's where I think people, I wish more and more people have got the opportunity to come to Amsterdam to digital procurement, and really understand some of those technologies and how they hang together, because it really opens up your mind to the possibility, if you will.
And in my day-to-day work, I talk an awful lot about skills and digital skills in particular. And I think this has been talked about the connection with digital skills and the challenges of adoption. We hear a lot in the market about solutions that have been bought and not adopted effectively. Where do you see, what are the key factors in successful adoption of tools for procurement teams, and also perhaps for stakeholders and end users?
So in our sort of challenges in our company, we found, as we're starting to play around with AI, we found the productive become more productive, and non-productive become less productive, because they're going to get lost in that journey, or we start playing around with tools. Whereas the really smart guys, I'm sat here at the moment having a conversation with ChatGPT, trying to dump 30 years of knowledge into an AI. And I think the smart guys who work that out can really use that to their advantage and really sort of, start, be able to play around, but also plan their category strategies. And that's what we've been able to do. We've been able to produce really complex strategies around really very difficult environments, like battery chemistries that we use a lot in our business, and solar panel chemistries, how the AIs work out some of the real complex challenges of building a strategy around those sort of really sort of difficult areas. That in the old days you have a team of analysts trying to work it out in very complex ways. So it's getting there, and it's getting there really quick, Andrew. And we're really, I would say, surprised and impressed at the pace of change. And I think that's what everyone's waking up to today.
Yeah, indeed. And I think it's the technology is moving so quickly. It's hard for professionals to keep pace with their own skills. And I've seen some data that really saying that, look, CPOs aren't necessarily investing in training and development in this particular area. Do you think it's on the individuals to take personal responsibility, sort of drive their own tech literacy so they can use tech as enablers to do their job better, or should it be coming from in-house? Where do you see that balance between a CPO encouraging the learning versus the individual taking personal responsibility?
In my mind, a CPO has to become this character, which is very much, a collaborator, a storyteller, to convince people to work. Very rarely do CPOs buy anything. We're working with the business to help them down that journey, what they need to buy, and we're trying to do it in the most ethical, most commercial, most, logical way. And when it comes to training, I see myself, I'm 60 years old, so I'm a coach. I teach people how to think, and I spend a lot of time teaching myself my skills, and upgrading my skills. And since we met 4 weeks ago, I've probably been through 12 different training courses. I can now program a bit in Python, which don't ever ask me to do that, but at least I understand I can have a conversation about it. So I think each and every one of us have got this responsibility to learn and to take on and grab it. What you'll find in most organizations, the training will always be there. If you want to grab it, it's up to you, to plan for it. In Centrica, we have access to all the LinkedIn training, we have all the online training. So it's really good, for our employees. So you've got to want it, you've got to have a hunger. I think that's what it comes down to, having that hunger to sort of, learn and teach, because we're at the sort of cusp of, a real radical change in the way we work. And I think that's part of our journey, is to upgrade our own skills and use your companies and your HR departments to help you in that journey. So it's going to be a bit of a holistic challenge, but a great opportunity. I'm excited. And as I said, I'm 60 years old and I'm planning my next 30 years. So.
Well, I'm not far behind you, Peter, and I've certainly embraced it myself. I mean, two words that really stood out for me at the event at DPW were experimentation and curiosity, and I think those two very relevant words for that sort of self-development. And in our business, we're finding more and more uses for Gen AI, job specs, adverts, marketing capability, sense checking all sorts of data. So on the subject of Gen AI, we touched on during our conversation at the event on the role of Gen AI in these solutions and the future of digital procurement. And you highlighted ESG as an area that you felt was very important, particularly with your Centrica cap on. Could you expand on that, the role of ESG in Gen AI rather in ESG in the future?
So for me, I kind of like everything that's coming along the pipeline around ESG. And the reason why is I've got really, I'm a sailor in my spare time. I spend a lot of time out in the water. So I'm kind of quite involved in the environment. I think most companies we're seeing now are putting sustainability at the top of their agenda. And sustainability is starting to become the new digital. And ESG is going to be that mechanism where we have to report on what we're doing, understanding, in our world in procurement, we're going to need to know how our suppliers are performing, but also how their suppliers are performing. If you go into the world of solar panels, that's a whole environment where, where you're getting the stuff to make solar panels from, either impacting the environment or you're impacting the population. So it's planet versus people. So we're going to need to have the tools to help us report. And I know today some of those tools exist, but a lot of the time we don't exist. And I think, if you're looking at a whole sustainability challenge, that's going to be a big part of ESG. The whole part around governance is also going to be part of a challenge that AI will help us drive, because there will be too much for the individual procurement person and all their suppliers. And then if you think about all the suppliers being asked the same questions by their customers, where do you buy your solar? Where do you buy this? Where does it come from? And that whole ability is going to have to be built into a really smart AI stack. And I think it's a time where companies and countries will have to start working together, because you can't just have everyone working in isolation. You have countries working in isolation and then companies working in isolation. Then, we're going to end up in a big chunk of cholesterol where nothing moves forward. So I think the opportunity there, for AI is really to come help drive a lot of that grunt work, to understand, to help analyze, to understand what's going on in your marketplace, but also help satisfy the requirements of ESG. And they are, as we're seeing more and more of them emerge, getting bigger and more, and more challenging as we see them. It's not just about net zero. And for me, my discovery, I would say, in my 4 years in Centrica, is net zero is actually good business for us. Not for the reason you imagine. It's for us. It's just sensible procurement. And we can eliminate waste in our supply chain, so we don't have stuff being shipped from place to place, and then into warehouses and then into other warehouses, and we get stuff to go magically much more towards our customers. That's kind of where we're going, and you drive a whole net zero, because every time you're moving something around the country, you're creating a carbon footprint behind it. So I think net zero is proving to be really good business for us. Not because we want to make money out of net zero. It's about getting companies to understand the more efficient you are in that space, the more the less carbon you can chuck into the atmosphere. And I think that's where the beauty of it comes for us. It helps us be more responsible towards our customers, but also have the most efficient supply chains. And I think AI will help us drive a lot of those conversations, a lot of that planning, to make sure we can understand where something comes from a different place. If you take, the journey of a protective glove, today it might come out of a warehouse into another warehouse and eventually get onto an engineer's hands. And we can get it, in the most efficient way, and extrapolate that from everything we buy, from boilers to parts for heating systems to big, gas peakers to power stations, and get them in the most efficient manner. Most net zero manner. So I think ESG becomes really exciting, and it's really exciting for us because it opens up a whole world of possibility, to do things more efficiently and more effectively using AI. So that's why I think we're quite pumped up about it and see the opportunity. What worries me the most is, a mom or a housewife or a disabled person sat at home, cold because we can't get parts to keep them warm. I think the more we can make that as efficient as digital as possible, the better that whole process gets. So I think net zero has a lot of positive rather than a lot of stuff we see in the press.
And that's a really interesting point, because so much of what you hear about ESG is organisations not able to commercially prioritise it yet you've made it actual good commercial sense the way you've explained it. And that's, I think, a rare view that perhaps doesn't get expressed as much as the other ones of around, we can't afford to prioritise that just yet. We've got other business issues we need to address first. So when you put it like that, it makes perfect sense, of course. And the other point you raised that I thought was quite interesting there is about collaboration. We've had some talk with sort of ESG tech vendors about their work, and one of the things that we see is them talk about more collaboration with organisations that perhaps historically have been competitors. So, for example, in your case, obviously, other energy and utility businesses. And then also driving consistency of standards across that space, some with legislation, some voluntarily, from what I understand. So, I mean, that collaboration angle, I think, is one which people are talking about, but we're not seeing much evidence of it just yet. Or have I missed something? Did you do any collaboration at Centrica, or is that still sort of early days in that theory?
I would like to say we're making some headway. We talked to the guys at BT a little bit, but I think, and we're a British company, but I think we buy from all over the world, and as we remove, we move more to collaborative commerce, and try and simplify things down, for our suppliers, but also, for our customers. And we do need to collaborate. And I think everyone needs to wake up to that journey of collaboration. That's kind of, my focus for the next few years is going to be helping companies to understand how we do that, because it's really important. The whole sustainability challenge will not happen if every country, company, individual still lives in their own private silo. It's got to be done together. And the whole sustainability thing, I think, is amazing. As I said, I'm a sailor, so I get to see firsthand a lot of the impact on the environment, in the water. But it's not just, in that element of sustainability, even that what we're doing to our soils, what we're doing to our environments, it's not just about carbon into the environment. It's around the whole sustainability challenge. So I do truly believe the more we can work together and collaborate on that as companies, but it's still the elements of competition are there for different reasons. How we compete to win business is not around, how we decide which panel to buy. Should we buy, that environment or that environment? So I think it's a good opportunity for us to start as a species, as a human family, to start to work together a bit more. So, I don't want to sound a bit naive, but at 60 years old, I get to look back and I do think about this stuff a lot, how we can move forward.
Yes, it's going to require a little bit of a shift in mindset, as you say. Not thinking about competing for customers, but actually trying to do the right thing as a species. So, sounds like an area you've got great passion for, the technology, the ability for technology to influence ESG, particularly Gen AI. So that's an area you see yourself working in moving forward. Then, from the sounds of it,
very much so. Yeah.
Right, that's been absolutely fascinating, Peter. I really appreciate your insights. Good, I think, for our audience, a lot of whom are in on the tech side of the ecosystem, to actually hear those thoughts and get those perspectives. And I'm sure many other CPOs and other procurement leaders will find it fascinating as well. So thank you very much for your time. I look forward to speaking again in the future.
You're very welcome, Andrew. Anytime you want to chat, let me know, or anyone else who watches this. I'm really happy to chat about this stuff. So.
Yeah, on that, if you need to get in touch with Peter, of course, you can find him on LinkedIn, or if not, I can put you in touch directly if you contact me via LinkedIn, or if you've got my email, or on our website, everydaywe.com, which I think you can just about see behind me. Okay, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in.